back, my listeners, to the Menopause Disruptive Podcast. If you are new to this podcast, welcome. I'm glad you found me. And for all my return listeners, so glad to have you back. Mental health has been a real theme on this show lately, and it deserves all the attention it can get because the cross-section between mental health and menopause is shocking, but it's real, and we need to discuss it. Not just like our physical symptoms, but the cognitive decline that comes with it. But as you've heard on other episodes, if you've been tuning in recently and consistently, as estrogen leaves the body, there is a real wake-up call for women to discover some past traumas that have never been dealt with. And on this topic, we get into something that's very sensitive, so I will caution you, my listeners. We're going to talk about the struggles with suicidal ideation. And why is this important? Because as we go through menopause, well, if that isn't tricky enough, if you haven't been dealing with past trauma, or you have underlying neurodivergent traits that have never been discovered, diagnosed, or dealt with properly, suicidal thoughts, they are what I would say an outcome of having things like post-traumatic stress disorder, early childhood trauma, childhood adverse experience, even with some cognitive functions that are interfering with your personal life and certainly your professional life. Today, I'm joined by Gina Cavalier. She is an author, an artist, a filmmaker, and the founder of A Liberated Healer. Her work extends to writing books, creating courses, and producing a docuseries aimed at reducing the stigma around suicide and providing practical tools for self-care. In our episode, she introduces healing techniques, which includes, first and foremost, grounding, color therapy, and energy work for individuals to manage their mental health, particularly for women going through menopause. Gina will share her personal experiences with mental health challenges, her childhood struggles with suicidal ideation, and her journey to develop a self-healing and empowerment program. It is quite inspiring. I saw the parallel between women facing menopause and PTSD and the need for intellectualizing the topic so that we can provide support and preventative measures. And that is exactly why I wanted Gina to be on my show. But before we begin, here's something you need to know about Gina. Gina Cavalier is at the crossroads of wellness and media entertainment and building a brand that focuses on homeopathic healing and provides specific guidance to help those dealing with suicidal thoughts. She offers support and tools through her books, programs, content, events, and corporate and group education. Her docuseries about worldwide suicide and suicidal ideation stresses the importance of open conversation to the subject so others can share and so we can save lives. Gina has secured 2 publishing deals related to her teachings and program. The first book, Surviving Suicidal Ideation, From Therapy to Spirituality, and her second book, The Lived Experience, co-authored with a trauma-informed therapist, Dr. Amelia Kelly, with 30 hand-inked illustrations by Gina herself, published by the Swedenborg Foundation just this past June 2024. I think it's very important before we get started, however, to disclaim that the content shared in this podcast is intended for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered as a substitute for professional mental health advice or treatment. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health issues or suicidal thoughts, I encourage you to reach out for help. Please contact a mental health professional, a trusted person in your life, or a crisis hotline in your area. You are not alone, and there are people who care and want to support you. Welcome, Gina. Glad to have you on the show to talk about a very important topic in women's health, in particular, suicidal thoughts. So I'm so pleased that you're here to share with us your journey and your experience. Welcome.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, Gina, I always like to understand my guest's backstory because our journey always leads us to our purpose. And I think that perhaps there's always some kind of information or a story that is shared that can help a listener, somebody who's going through the same sort of experience, to get a little tips on how to survive the tumultuous phases of our lives. So please share with us your journey that led you to focus on wellness and in particular suicide ideation.
Absolutely right. We all have a story, and understanding that we're all unique in whatever our journey is, to recognize that we're all going through ups and downs, and living in a more compassionate, judge-free world is what is going to lead us to collectively becoming happier. And when you start to learn that there's another way to live, the floodgates open. And a lot of people who have suicidal ideation in their life, definitely from the people I've spoken to, majority of them have had some kind of PTSD or trauma in their childhood or in life, something that developmentally led them to feeling the way they do. Say, for example, no motherly attention when they were a baby, or abandonment or abuse or anything like that. So there's a lot of different reasons. But when you're growing up and getting into your 20s and 30s, you kind of feel like that story and your backstory for the most part is just who you are, and that's never going to change. And you just are constantly trying to climb that hill, and you're always like in a struggle mode. And anytime a big life event comes up, all of those wounds come rushing to the forefront. That could be you had a divorce, you had a really big breakup, you lost your job, you went through a bankruptcy, whatever it is. And all of a sudden now all these hard things are being rushed up to the front. You haven't healed the stuff in the back, or you haven't really looked at it. And then all of a sudden you're just in this like spiral. And when you do that, the mind kind of takes over, the programming takes over, and you just start to look at and feeling there's like a self-pity that starts to happen, an obsession about that you're never going to be happy, or whatever it is. For the majority of the people I talk to about suicidal ideation, most of them say it's not something that happens all the time. And that's something that I want to bring up real quickly. It's not like there's a lot of people that have depression or bipolar or different things that they've been diagnosed. But for the most part, suicidal ideation isn't an everyday thing. And that's the good thing about it. But what's happening is that person that has suicidal ideation in their life, they're really afraid of when that shoe is going to fall, because when that shoe falls and something comes, they know they're going to go into this spiral, and it's kind of secretive. And that's another reason why nobody talks about it. Not only because the stigmatization that's happening, but because you know what, this might only be a couple days that I'm going through this. Why do I want to expose all that in me when it's not something who I am every day? And now people are going to look at me like that. I might not be qualified for another position that I wanted, if my employer finds out, and things like that. So it's completely hidden. The stages of suicidal ideation, if you start to progress fast enough, you can get to the stage where you're planning and acting. It can become very dangerous. So having more positive content and conversation about what's going on is the most important thing that we can do to people, because everybody's like a tea kettle. And if you don't take it off the pot, you're just going to explode. My thing is to bring levity to the conversation and bring the light into the darkness so people can feel welcome to have these. And I'm going to answer your question a little bit about my background. Childhood of abuse, first suicidal ideation that I can remember was around 8. That's when my parents got a divorce. My dad was a violent alcoholic. My mom was an absentee mother. And I was very sensitive, and I just felt like I didn't belong anywhere. I couldn't understand, when you're a child, everything's so beautiful, rainbows, puppies, and then you have all this, it doesn't correlate, you don't understand. And you feel like, maybe there's a mistake, I was here, or why does that neighbor next to me have that nice dad and mom who feel so welcome? And you start to compare yourself. So you have that comparative energy, and then you start to self-pity yourself. And the self-pity is another dangerous pattern that becomes in your mind. And so I had this again on and off my life, right? And I moved out when I was 14, so I'm a survivor, right? I started working in the entertainment industry at 19 at Disney Studios. So
wow,
what happened is I became extremely focused on being successful, and thought that would cure my woes, right? And I got all the way up to getting to like a VP title, and I was more suicidal and depressed than I ever had been. So that wasn't the answer. I needed to go back and look at my wounds, and I really needed to look at them. I needed to heal them. I needed to address the way that my mind speaks to myself. I realized that I loved everyone else and everything else but me. So I would care like a beautiful mother to my friend or my colleague or my job or my partner in life. But me, I got the scraps, and my mind just told myself, if I made a mistake at work, look at your failure, look what you did, and I created these patterns. And I finally, in my 30s, got really tired of this. And I said, I'm either going to do it or I'm going to fix it. And I was too scared to do it. So, and they had rescue animals. And I was like, who's going to take care of my rescue animals?
Oh.
And so I decided to do it. And so I went on a journey and I just tried every single thing you can imagine, healing wise, therapy, religions, meditations, healing masters, all kinds of different things. And I found what worked for me was understanding energy and how it works in my body and how I could transform it in a moment's notice, right? And that put me in the driver's seat for the first time in my life and said, you know what? Yes, I have all this stuff. I can't call a friend or a doctor 24/7. I can't, I have to be able to manage myself and my emotions. I have to. And I created a program that worked for me. And then over time, doing these techniques that I teach, I just started having less and less and less and less of it, falling more and more in love with myself, feeling like when obstacles came to me, I was just like, okay, let's look at this. And then they would go away without me having an issue. I might have to say, I'm sorry, our friendship isn't working anymore. Bye-bye, live with love, things that I would have been terrified to do before. And all of a sudden I just realized I don't have suicidal ideation anymore. Oh my gosh, I want to share this with the world because I believe that people who have suicidal ideation haven't heard this before. But what I'm saying is you can get rid of it and you don't have to live with it the rest of your life. It can be gone. And that's what it's gone for me. And I went through, while I was writing my book, Surviving Suicidal Ideation, I went through a terrible breakup. I lost all my money. My ex stole my money. It was very betrayal. It was really scary. So as I was writing the book, I was using all my techniques, and not once did I ever go into that pit. So I was like, wow, I can actually say this with a full heart, 100%, that I truly believe that I have healed it in me 100%. And I think I needed to know that a part of me before I put it out into the world that way. Yeah.
Oh,
sorry
Gina,
for the long intro.
Well, I was going to say, first and foremost, thank you for taking the time to really explain what was going on within your mindset and in your world, and recognizing that this was a problem that exists with many people. And I mean, I hate to say this, but sometimes we need to take that journey to discover the purpose, but it has to be something that's impactful, that really breaks us down and has us look at ourselves right to the raw core of who we are. And that is definitely menopause. A lot of things that you've said, I mean, without the suicidal ideation with women going through menopause, we're at the forefront of facing a lot of those past traumas. And then you add on to anything, like you said, the PTSD on top of that, which, by the way, my Menopause and PTSD solo podcast has the most downloads. That tells me something, that there's something happening here. And so I think that this story that you shared will resonate so deeply with people. But your work goes beyond what you explained. You created a course, and I think that's the Liberated Healer. Mm-hmm. And then you wrote a book, and I want to talk about each of those, but now you're going on even further to make the message broader and more easily accessible by taking it to a documentary series.
Yes.
I want to dive into that right away.
Okay.
My listeners are thinking, I want more of this. Well, here it is.
So anybody in the entertainment industry knows that there's a really crazy influx going on right now. And it's really easy to get depressed about it because they're not making as many feature films as they used to. They're not, investors are not putting money into documentaries right now. Everybody's kind of at a standstill and nobody knows what to do. People aren't working. People that have worked for 30, 40 years in the business have nothing on their plate. My sister, who's an award-winning Emmy makeup and hairstylist, she has only worked 4 days this year. I mean, a lot of people don't know that the industry is struggling because you see so much content. You think that, the industry is doing well, but it's not. And finding an investor to do a documentary is absolutely painstaking. And even with all that aside, though, and I'm doing an event, a private event for Malibu on 9/14 with filmmakers and trying to raise money. But what I want to tell them, express to them is we love stories. Humans love storytelling.
Yes.
We're visual. This is a story. It's in our body. It's in who we are. And as a collective, you have more power than you know by supporting documentaries, either by watching them or liking them or following them on Instagram or whatever way you can have, because your dollar, every single dollar you spend is telling the world what you want to consume. It's
Exactly.
really important to do that. And also supporting stuff that uplifts the community is a beautiful thing, you know? So like for me, I stopped even watching any type of horror films or, you know, other than being a sensitive, I just knew that I didn't want to put that mark on that film saying that that's what I want more of. And for my children, I don't even have kids, but for our children in the world, like I really want family oriented content that everybody can watch. If there's a moral to the story that brings us new information that's uplifts the community. So we're going to dive into a lot of different things. There's nothing like this actually right now yet still. And we're going to look at the, you know, is this going to be, as you intellectualize what's happening to you, it helps you consume it. So I took this through a lot of grief training. You know, they break it down. There's like 5 stages of grief. They say, you know, the first one is shattering. The second one is withdrawal. The third one is reflection or whatever, right? There is definitely different stages with suicidal ideation. And we need to talk about it, but people are so afraid to put their money into such an important topic. And it blows my mind that 10 horror movies can get greenlit in 3 seconds, but a 6-part docuseries about suicide, using it as an intellectual tool is so fearful. And that tells me something, that we need to change that dynamic. We need to show support for people and that want better content out there. We have to have these intellectual conversations, and we can't be afraid of them. First of all, again, it brings in more levity. We have veterans commit suicide more than they die in combat. A report came out in the Pentagon as a fact. We have LGBTQ. They have the extremely high number, especially after they have transitioned, something like 60% after transition, which they thought was going to make them happy. They're having the same thing. Children, the fastest age range is 10 to 14. We lose one person every 40 seconds in the world. We lose one person every 11 minutes in the United States. 45% of people who unalive themselves saw their primary care physician the month prior. Nobody's talking about it. So absolutely need more conversation, more support, and we're going to bring levity to it. Look how I talk about it. I don't go doom and gloom, and yes, it's a terrible thing, but I'm here live saying I'm alive because I'm doing it. And I want you to be able to talk about it, because they say that if you talk to somebody for 8 minutes who's suffering in a suicidal ideation episode and listen to them, that 8 minutes can actually transition their energy into wanting to stay here. So every minute is vital. And we want to look at the global phenomenon of it too, the different cultures. So what's the numbers in Japan? The majority of the people in Japan do this because of debt. What about China? What about in Brazil, in Ireland, and in the UK, the numbers are big. Canada, the numbers are big. I mean, we want to kind of look at maybe what the differences are. But the one thing we do know is that right now, this moment is the most suicidal attempts and ideation that we have ever had in the history of man, ever. So we need to look at it.
Yes.
Yeah. And we need to ask, the main question is, why, as we have gotten richer, more medicated, more technically conveniences, why are our people lonely, depressed, disconnected, and feeling like this is a solution? This is preventable.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting how you talked about the statistics with PTSD in our veterans and menopausal women in the transition. The Center of Disease Control, I believe, is reported amongst suicidal rates in women, the highest age bracket is 45 to 64, and that correlates exactly with that transition period. So that does speak to what is happening, or why are we not feeling supported and feeling so lonely? I really want to address the energy work that you talk about, because that resonates so well with me as well, shifting that energy when things get stuck. It's not just a psychological or a physical outcome or a physical ailment, but it manifests in psychological ailments, as we've seen with the suicidal thoughts, ideation.
And it's so good for menopause because it gives you a tool.
Exactly.
I would say this is a perfect time to break for a word from our sponsors. Guess what? You, my listeners, are my sponsors. That's right. I would love it if you could support the show. Helping me will help bring these amazing episodes to you each and every week, just packed full of information to help you on your menopause journey. And to support the show, all you have to do is go into the show notes and click just above where you read Meet Your Host. In green is Support the Show. You click on the button to a page where you have the option to donate monthly, 3, 5, 8, 10. You can be a loyal supporter for as long as you want, with recurring fee as little as $3 a month, and opt out at any time. Each investment goes directly back into producing episodes with even better content, improved audio quality, and will go a long way in bringing great guests onto the show.
So let's talk about those tools. And first of all, what are some of those key takeaways of your docuseries that you aim to spread in terms of reducing the stigma, but then on top of that, saying, okay, this is preventable. Here's the tools. This is what's in your toolbox right now. Let's get to work.
So everything that happens to us medically in our body has an energy.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, this actually, through menopause, can give you a tool that you have readily available. Whatever your plan is, if you use bioidentical hormones, whatever you choose to use, this can be applied on top of it. This is a nice tool that everybody can use. When you actually have awareness and you start to document how this is actually helping you, it will blow your mind, because you have something that's readily available 24/7 as a hot flash comes or as a mood swing comes, and you can use these practices. The thing is that we have 50 trillion cells in our body. 50 trillion cells all have a little bit of energy, and that pushes us together to create a physical form. We can transform it as needed. Even if your body is going through a physiological situation, that doesn't mean that you can't change the energy in your mind or in your heart or how it's affecting you emotionally. So it will help you actually get through that push. So the way that I explain it to people is, we all have mountains to climb when we know this, right? As a human, we either can go up that mountain with a boulder on our back or with an axe in our hand. And the axe in your hand is the information, the tools that you need to do. Like, okay, I'm going to have to go up this mountain no matter what. Drop that boulder, drop all that stuff, use the tools. So the very first tool that we always use is grounding. This is something that our body naturally used to do all the time, about hundreds of years ago, when we were all living on ranches by the ocean or in the mountains, because our body was ionized to connect to the earth's energy and also the universal energy, and we would be more perfectly balanced. So we have lost that balance through many different reasons, partially through Wi-Fi. If you think about it, you have Wi-Fi energy going in and out of your body all the time. If you're just a ball of that 50 trillion energy cells, what do you think that Wi-Fi is doing to your energy cells, right? It is ungrounding us. It is completely ungrounding us. All the thing that's in our environment is affecting our ability to ground. And so I use this analogy a lot, and people love it. When you're building a house, an electrician comes in and they're putting in all the wires for all the things that we're going to use, right? The first thing that they build is grounding to the ground. Because if they didn't do that, the energy would go everywhere. The house would catch on fire. We're exactly the same. So the first thing I do is ground. I ground constantly. And when you use this as the primary tool, and this is always the first thing that you do anyways, is to ground. And the way that you do it is you create a grounding cord 2 inches wider than your hips. And this cord, you can visualize it as anything you want it. It could be a redwood tree, it could be a willow tree, it could be a cylinder, you can bejewel it, it doesn't matter. But this is a release mechanism for you to release the things that are no longer serving, the energy, that's the downward spiral energy, fear, hate, anger, frustration, jealousy, competition, all that stuff that gets stuck in your body. Let it go if you can. Put a grounding cord on, make it wider than your hips. It's going to be hollow on the inside. And I want you to see it go and hit that ground and start to travel through that beautiful earth. Earth has so many interesting energy in it. It's so intelligent. The trees have all these roots, right? And their synapses speak to each other, and they connect with information and energy. If a tree is dying over here and another tree is here, they can feel it through the roots. They send through the root systems energy to try to save that tree. We are part of a complex, beautiful system, intelligent. So as you ground, you're getting a part of that intelligence and connecting your body. And it's really beautiful, right? And it's saying, I'm here, I'm grounded. It is hard to push you over when you're grounded. If you have a bully in your life, whether it's a boss or a friend or a family member, it's very hard to push over someone who's grounded. Number one, when you're grounded, you're in your seniority, you're in your strength, you're in your power. You can't push me over. And I was such a pushover when I worked at the studios. I was like, whatever you want, whatever you want. And people push me over so easily with throwing energy at me. So you ground, you send it all the way through the earth, speed of light into the center of the earth where the lava is, and you connect it to there. And then you just ask your higher self or your energetic body, just put me on release, anything that's not serving me. And it just goes down. That's the first thing that we always do, is the grounding. And you can ground your home, your animals, other people. You can ground a meeting. You can ground your business. You can ground a project. For menopausal women, you can ground your whole female area. Do the exact same thing. Just put a grounding cord all the way to the center of the earth, because we have these charges in our fallopian tubes and our ovaries that other people's energy that's stuck in there, if you can imagine, right?
Exactly. Yes. We pass down that through our ancestry, which is in our genes and in our DNA. We pass down that past trauma.
That's why the yoni eggs work really well. I have a black obsidian yoni egg that I use it clears out dark energy, and it's really great for menopausal women. You can get a rose quartz or a black obsidian, especially if you're still sexually active. You hold other people's energy in there. So having this process of clearing that energy out, that's not yours. Because as females, we want to caretake, right? So when you have an intimate partner in that area, you literally will take on their energy, especially if you're a caretaker. You're like, oh, I want to make sure they're okay. What happens is you start to take on their energy and their karma in that area, and it weighs you down. The grounding cord will release you from other people's energy. The yoni egg will clear out that energy, ground your whole female system. I love grounding my ovaries. It's called Women's Intuition, where it was all about doing the women's grounding, grounding our parts and our things, and letting the energy be released. I was told that by 19 that I couldn't have children. I had endometriosis. I had 2 tubal pregnancies. I mean, I have had a battle with my female parts my whole life. I wound up having to get a partial hysterectomy by the time I was 47. Doing the practice of the energy work has really helped me, because there was sadness in there because I wasn't able to have kids, anger. And so the energy practices has really let me go to release the story of the energy of my female parts not doing their job for me, or whatever story I created around them, and giving them a break to say, it's okay. That was my storyline. That's what happens. Of course, I felt like I was broken. It helps you to accept that storyline in yourself and to drop the weight of that pain and that fear that you're carrying, that somehow you're defective, because that's still energy. And if you want to live the best day you can today, going back and living those storylines, they do have to be cleared out in a way that never 100%, but you have to build a better understanding and a forgiveness and a love around them and acceptance, because now you can go achieve other new things in this world.
Fantastic. Just a couple of things.
Okay.
So as you're explaining the grounding cord, so this is something we literally envision. It's not a physical substance, whereas the yoni egg is actually a physical material that you would use. And I'm going to presume, I've heard of them, they're used inserted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They have a string on them that you pull so you can pull them out, because they're smaller than you think.
Yes.
When you get them, you're like, this little thing.
You see them on the ads and it looks like this massive egg. You think, what the heck?
They're little.
So very interesting though, because obviously visualizing this cord speaks to the fact that our thoughts in themselves are such powerful energy. And again, and we've heard so many people in this field of intuitives and channelers. Dr. Joe Dispenza, of course, has done the science on this. So very interesting that we are able to think it, visualize it, and therefore create the tools within ourselves to find some healing. I'm fascinated with that and fully attest to it. I actually myself had done a womb healing session. And I also felt very strongly as a menopause coach with the background in chakra energies is that we have to release what comes up in the menopause. And most of it is stuck as we transition from a role of reproduction, whether we've had a pregnancy or a child or not. But that role in our body shifts to the wise woman. But so too must that energy shift from the lower chakras of matter to the higher chakras. So absolutely fascinating that this is one of your tools. And the first tool, the foundational work, and it being associated.
And a lot of people, if they can't see it physically, they can't understand it. Right? Really hard for people to say, what do you mean? You know, the way that I explain this helped me understand it a little bit too. And this is everything in life. When somebody can't see something physically, it doesn't exist to a lot of people. This is consciousness. Okay. So when you're creating this grounding cord and you're visualizing, you're adding it to your consciousness, which is a real living thing. But it's above it's working with your mind, body, spirit, and soul. It's a bigger thing. It's not a physical thing. It's your consciousness creating. We all know that your consciousness can manifest different things in your life, right? If you're living all day hum-dum, my life is going to create that, right? But if you're like, I'm going to get that project, I'm going to get that job, that's the consciousness. If it's not physically touchable and tangible, a lot of people get stuck there. So they need to know that that's where this is coming from. It's coming from your consciousness, and it's an intelligence that you're building with your own consciousness.
Beautiful. I absolutely love that. For our menopausal women, our listeners, they've done the grounding work. What can they anticipate next as they've laid the foundation in doing their own personal care, liberation, healing? How does the work continue thereafter so that they can find themselves in a better place with their mental health and their physical health?
Yeah. Some people don't like to hear this, but healing is a solo sport. You can get camaraderie, and that's what you're building. And that's what we're here for. But you have to own it. There's not a magic pill. There's not someone else who's going to be able to do any of this for you ever at all, unfortunately. And that's hard to hear sometimes. It's really hard to hear because they're like, what? I want you to come heal me. What? I want to go to a healer and get healed. Even when I do healings, I tell people I'm a different type of healer. If you want me to come and just heal your things, that's not me. I teach you how to heal yourself. I will help you pass it through, but I'm not going to do it for you. If you don't want to learn the tools, you just want someone to come in and heal you, that's another healer or another practice. I want you to have the tools in case you're like on a plane and you're having a panic attack or you're having a hot flash. What can I do? You at any moment have the tools to do it. We need more people to know these tools constantly, 24/7. And I teach how all these colors work in our body, right? Every color has a different energy. But you think of the rainbow, and I'm just going to go through the rainbow because if you need it right now, you can just imagine this is completely covering you. Yellow, seniority, strength, power, confidence. Surround yourself in yellow if you're going into a presentation. If you're going into a heavy conversation with a family member or a friend or a business partner, surround yourself in the brightest electric blue. That's for communication, of igniting the energy cells in you that are for blue. Green is for healing, bright green. You want to heal your space, your heart. You have a broken heart. Just imagine your heart is that bright green. Flush that bright green all in your body. If you have an illness, flush yourself with this green energy, right? Gold is the highest vibrational healing color. You can imagine top down, this bright gold will just literally flush your energetic body. Purple is for your intuition. If you wanted to make a decision on something, or if you're really, I don't know if this person's for me, if this job's for me, flush you with that bright purple. Pink is for giggling, friendship, and that female empowerment. Bright pink, you're going in to a gathering with women, say there's somebody who's jealous of someone, surround it with pink. We need to transform anything as much as we possibly can back to love constantly. And as we do that, all of our lives get better. Orange is for creativity. If you have to write a proposal, if you have to do something and you're stuck, surround yourself in that bright orange, being creative and using your expression and excitement. Brown is for grounding. If you're feeling anxious, you have a lot of anxiety in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Brown, I call it go down to brown. Go down to brown.
I love that.
All of you. And then that anxiety will go away. It's crazy how it works, because brown is such a grounding color. When you learn that you have access to this stuff. When I was an executive at Warner Brothers, before I was an executive, when I was really just a manager, I used to use these techniques. And the president of Warner Brothers, the very top person at Warner Brothers, like number 4 in the whole company, in this big meeting with like 50 people, used to turn around to me and go, "What do you think, Gina?" And I was a manager at the time. And people would just be like, "Why is she asking her? She's just the low totem pole kid, right?" I guarantee you it's because I ran my energy all the time. And I put myself in seniority, that yellow color, and I would ground myself. And I would just sit there literally like owning my space. And she couldn't believe it. She was just like, "Oh, isn't she an executive?" My boss, who was the vice president, used to get so jealous. "I'm the vice president." She'd get so mad. But when you learn you have so much power in energy, it becomes a little bit addictive. And that's what happened to me. It was like, oh my gosh, I could actually change my environment. And what happens is the people around you absorb it. And then the world gets kinder. Even though it's a solo sport and you're doing it for yourself, you're helping everybody around you. And that's where the in-service comes. And that's sort of the last part. When you go through a lot of healing, you give back. And it's very important that you give back. There's a moment where you're going to go, "I have to give back now." You thought it was all for you for a while. But when you get to a turning point where you've learned such a great amount and something really important, and that's sort of what I've done with my books. I took a year and a half off. I didn't make any money. And it's been hard to write 2 books to get out to the world. And it was like, I have to though. So going in service is the last, when it's time to go in service, you really healed.
As though in service to others is the ultimate compliment or the ultimate show of respect to the universe, source, whatever one wants to call it. Is I finally have learned my lessons, if you will. And now it's time to give back. I'm a true believer in that. In fact, doula is a Greek term that means a woman who serves. And that's exactly what we're doing, is we're serving other women. And it was not an easy step to arrive to for myself. Just a journey through the corporate, similar to you. So that's why I resonate so much with your story. And I know many of our listeners will. And we work that corporate job, trying to climb that corporate ladder, get knocked down, work harder to get back up, move jobs back down the seniority chain. All the while, we just want to show up, share our gifts, be part of the team. But there's always the nuance between the personalities. And like you said, in competition. And I believe this is very apropos for menopause too, because when we go through those steps, those journeys, and releasing that stuck energy, we're arriving to a place where Ayurveda calls the age of wisdom, tapping into the intellect of our inner knowing. But we can't get there until we've had that journey through, well, awakening, if you will, opening up. I like to say, let's stop absorbing, but start observing ourselves. Beautiful the work you're doing, Gina. Incredible what you have to share. And it's so relevant to the menopausal experience. When we're going through menopause, we have a heightened sensitivity to the energy that's around us. Bringing this back to the awareness or the energy, shifting that energy in the workplace so we can be more compassionate and understanding and open, non-judgmental even about ourselves. How do you see then that this is steps to support the menopausal woman in managing her mental health and even addressing the suicidal ideation, particularly when she is still working in the corporations and probably hitting the peak of her career as she starts getting to that age where she will be at one particular corporation for a long time, be looked at for a higher position, to excel to the highest rank or appointments within that
corporation, but is now facing this. So how do you see this work being done that can help them?
Oh my gosh, this will be a saving grace from, like I said, adding on to any other things that work for them. They're more in control. They have the tools. And like I said, what happens is you start to train yourself as the hormonal things start to go out of whack, the brain
Mhm.
starts to react. All the stuff starts to flood through. And then you can separate that a little bit. You realize that you have so much power. It's like, yeah, my body is going through this. I don't have to think all those crazy thoughts. I don't have to respond. You recognize my mood is changing. I need to go for a walk. Hey, excuse me for a minute. I have to go for a walk around the building. People will respect that. You have to set your own boundaries. You have to communicate. Can't hide it. People would respect it a lot more if you go, you know what? I'm actually kind of having a hot flash and it's actually affecting me. I just need to go walk around the building, come back and address it. And then they go, wow, she is in control. She's creating safe boundaries, because we all have to feel safe. You are in control. You affect your environment. So how do you want them to lead? People, they don't remember what you say really, but they remember how you made them feel. How did you manage that experience for everyone? They'll respect you a lot more if you're also being honest and a little bit open, and having some humility and laughing through it. You got to bring some laughter. Laughter is the highest vibration of energy other than love. Laughter. Bring in laughter. Hey guys, I'm having a giant hot flash right now. I need a second. I'm going to be back in 5 minutes. Come back around, different energy. Just make it light and silly a little bit. We all know laughter is contagious. Why don't we do it more? Just bring in a little bit of silliness and
it humanizes the experience. Yeah, humanize it, bring us all back to the same level. That's exactly what I did to survive the brain fog. Turn around looking at somebody and said, what did you just say? What am I here for? And then just having a good chuckle. And 9 times out of 10, the other women in the room said, oh, sister, do I ever hear you?
And don't beat yourself up about it. That self-pitying energy. That was my big downfall. It's just, when I realized I didn't have to do that anymore, I'm like, I don't have to talk to myself like crap no more. That's awesome.
Because we've been trained to believe that we need to reduce ourselves to put everybody else first, is to minimize our importance. These key themes that we've talked about, the grounding, the standing in your power, using color, laughter, owning it, humanizing it, being honest. All these key tools, these themes, obviously are in your book, Surviving Suicidal Ideation. Let's give us a little bit of a background of the books that you have written, and the most recent one too, that you've partnered with another doctor. I'd like our listeners to hear about that.
Okay.
And where can they find your books, and what can they expect to take away from those books?
Thank you. Again, I want to just send a big hug to everybody, and thank you so much for your time, energy, and space today. It means so much to me. It's really a wonderful opportunity to get to know you. I can feel you. We're championing you through your struggles. Surviving Suicidal Ideation, from therapy to spirituality and the lived experience, is my lived experience story and the healed story of how I got there. I partnered with Dr. Amelia Kelly because she's a clinical therapist, and I know some people needed to have a voice of a doctor to be able to ground themselves more into that type of reality, and some people needed that. So the Swedenborg Foundation published us. I did 30 images that I channeled from energy into the book, and it came out June 2024, and it's available now on Amazon and a lot of mom and pop shops. And that's more like a workbook there. If you don't want to tell anybody, or you want to gift it to somebody, it's a great way for somebody who doesn't want to share what they're going through, because it is such a secretive thing, that they can use this workbook at home, and it's got a lot of resources in it as well. And then my second book that's coming out during the holidays is Planet Walking, a handbook for the living. And going back to storytelling, I'm a child that was raised by movies and TV shows, which I love. And I remember when I watched Beetlejuice, Tim Burton's Beetlejuice, and there was the handbook for the recently deceased. I remember as a kid saying, oh my goodness, where is a handbook for the living people? And it was so weird when I created this book. I was like, I know my title of the book, Planet Walking, is what we're doing. We're all walking the planet. And it's an easy version of how to live on the planet and how we're all just these magical beings. And it's a little bit shorter for the millennial mindset. It's not going deeply into all the areas. So here's what energy is, like more of a 1, 2, 3. And then I have illustrations of how energy moves through the body. So that's coming out with books at the end of the year. And then the docuseries we're raising money for is From the Edge of Life. And I'm trying to sell it to PBS or other. So please send up a big wish and manifestation that we get this series out. And from there, we want to create anonymous groups where people can go and get support. We want to create apps. Like there's a whole many things that we want to create as funding comes in. So I thank you for your support. And if you do get any of the books, putting a review on is the best way to support an artist because it helps the algorithms show it to other people. So thank you again. And the liberatedhealer.com is my website where you can book a healing or a reading or ask for a corporate deck to do a group setting.
Gina, I can't thank you enough. You touched on so many important topics. I'm going to get all those links in the show notes, and please check out the books. I'm excited to connect with what you have to share. Listen, ladies out there, if you're listening, if you're feeling red, if you're feeling yellow, lately I've been feeling colors of the rainbow. You nailed it. And I tell you, not only does my energy shift, the energy around me and the people I interact with shift. This is our time to step into our power. Gina, you are paving way for a lot of women to step into their power, to shed the ugly lights, see their beauty, and let go of those negative thoughts and move into that age of wisdom, the age of beauty.
Goddesses.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, listeners, if you are struggling with mental health issues, with perimenopause and menopause, take comfort in knowing that this is common, but not widely discussed. We don't talk enough about the effects of our symptoms experienced with hormonal fluctuations, let alone talk about suicide and suicidal ideation. So if you're struggling, here's what you can do, as we learned from our conversation with Gina. Have an open dialogue with friends, family, and seek the support from trusted professionals. Realize that in a moment of despair, we can shift our energy by leaning into time-tested and proven spiritual practices. And it begins simply by grounding our energy. And one example is visualization techniques to create in your imagination a grounding cord of any material of your choosing, the purpose being to create a deeper connection to oneself and the planet. Or using the ancient practice of a yoni egg, which is a crystal-shaped egg for pelvic floor strength, but is also used in a holistic approach to release inner energy centers. And to learn more about that, I have added a link in the show notes. Color immersion therapy. It's another excellent holistic approach to raise vibration. It's as simple as wearing bold colors, each color representing a chakra or energy center in the body, and is associated with different emotions and expressions of our higher positive energy, including love, confidence, and speaking our truth. If you're really interested in learning more in the context of menopause and symptom management, check out my digital course, Menopause Intelligence. I dedicate an entire module to chakras and what you can do to balance and align them. And last, learn to take agency of your situation with honesty and even laughter. We do take situations very seriously, especially in the workplace, where we feel our experiences have to be hidden or shelved away. That's simply not healthy and impossible to do. Mental health awareness is on the rise in the workforce, and so should menopause awareness, so we can support and empower career women in this significant life transformation. I encourage you to check out Gina's work, including her books and her docuseries. You can find more at theliberatedhealer.com, and Gina is also the host of a podcast by the same name, The Liberated Healer. If today's insights resonated with you, I'd love for you to be part of our growing community of Menopause Disruptors. Hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening right now. And if you know someone who can benefit from these conversations, please share this episode. Sometimes a simple act of sharing can be the first step in someone's healing journey. And hey, if you're ready to take the next step in your menopause journey, I'm here to support you. You can find all my services at mlcoaching.com. It's in the show notes. Want to stay connected and get regular doses of menopause wisdom? Follow me on Instagram at Menopause Disruptive Podcast, where I share tips insights, and real conversations about navigating this transformative phase of life. Let's continue to disrupt this menopause conversation together. Remember, midlife should be the best life, and it will be. Namaste. Wait 1 second. Before you go, there's one last thing I want to share. I don't want your menopause to limit who you are at this pivotal stage in life. I also don't want you to feel stuck in your transition with no clue where to begin. So I developed a program to help you on the journey. It's called none other than the Menopause Intelligence Course. I'd love for you to join me on an enriching, transformative experience designed exclusively for individuals ready to take agency of their menopause and not be slowed down in their experience. This 8-module course is fully self-directed, specifically crafted to explore essential aspects of the menopausal experience, blending scientific insights with practical strategies to empower your decision-making. We explore the science of hormones and the resulting mental, emotional, and physical changes associated with hormonal fluctuations. We also cover a range of holistic strategies and practices, inviting you to tap into your inner wisdom for symptom management. You'll be empowered to make important healthcare decisions. Experience the power of shared decision-making. Together with your healthcare team, you'll craft a personalized management plan that respects your unique needs and values. You deserve to have your voice heard and to participate actively in your health journey. Say goodbye to feelings of shame, embarrassment, or isolation. Own your journey. Gain mastery over your menopause experience. Face symptoms with confidence at work, at home, transforming what can be a challenging time into an opportunity for growth and celebration. This course is about enhancing your overall quality of life with knowledge and purpose and a fresh new perspective on your menopausal transition. There's a reason why Ayurvedic philosophy recognizes menopause as the age of wisdom. You're a wise woman, so let's get wise together. Head on over to the link in my show notes to learn more and enroll today. I can't wait to have you be a part of this community.